Welcome to the Negotiation Club. Now, this is our live practice edition. This is where we get a chance to actually watch a few people practice their negotiation skills and give a little bit of feedback, and also give you, the audience, a chance to perhaps add a little bit of critique, maybe ask your own questions as well. But of course, I can't negotiate on my own, so I'm going to ask my two friends to join us. We have Mike Inman and Fred Copestake. Now, Mike, if you aren't already familiar with, Mike is a procurement professional, having a procurement professional career in the past, and now does training as part of the Table Force company. And Fred, who is a trainer and a salesperson. So we have two sides of the table here. Mike, do you want to say hello?
No, hello everybody. Welcome back. It's always a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Phil.
That's right, Fred.
Yeah, yes, that's the same. No, I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be, yeah, it's going to be good. I learned honestly. So again, if I can take half away again, good investment of my time. Selfish, eh?
Well, I mean, yeah. For those of
What
you
about
who
me?
are watching, we do have a bit of fun here, and I think actually that's kind of really important when it comes to practicing any type of personal skill, professional skills. First of all, you want to have a safe place to do it. All right, which perhaps doing it in a live audience is not the safest place, but we're okay. We can deal with the criticisms as well as the praise if there is any. But the other thing is to also enjoy yourselves. Okay, we tend to learn a lot more when we're learning and we're enjoying ourselves. So we try to encompass both of this. Now, in a few minutes, we will do our little practice. And for those who are unfamiliar with this, we're going to use negotiation cards. So basically, we have a buyer's card and a seller's card. The idea is that as a buyer, you have a budget. So in this case, Fred, you're going to be a buyer. So you're going to be buying a product, have a budget. And of course, if you have a budget, you want to negotiate below that. And of course, if you're a seller, all right, you might have a break-even point. So if you're selling something, you need to try and agree a price above it. And perhaps between the two of you, you might find a price that is satisfactory to both of you, hence the negotiation. But it's more than that, it's a practice. So we need to be practicing certain skills. And one of the key things about practicing is to have what I term practice with purpose. Now, of course, you can try everything, every tactic, every skill you can possibly do, but that's no good in a practice. Perhaps one of the most effective ways of practicing is just to try focusing on one element. And that's why we've got tactic cards. So on here, various tactics, establish a range, the old Chris Voss one, mirror words. So lots and lots of tactics that we can practice on purpose. Now, just to add to that, the practices shouldn't go on for too long either. Okay. And what we do here is we literally use a 4-minute window to practice in. And the reason for that is 4 minutes is genuinely long enough for us to try something and short enough for us to be able to reflect upon it and be able to remind us and discuss what actually happened. If you tend to go any longer, 10 minutes, 20, an hour long negotiation, you lose all of that. We're just trying to get one aspect at a time. Now, what we're going to do, like I said, in a few minutes, Mike is going to be the seller. So he's going to be selling something. So he's actually on the wrong side of the table to his normal career. And we've got Fred, who's
Went over to the
normally a
dark
seller, who's
side.
going to be a buyer. So this is going to be good. This is even good. It's like I said, I have no idea what's going to happen. Okay. Now, one of the other aspects of practicing is it's great to be able to practice with somebody, but it's even better if you've got somebody to observe. Okay. And it's a massive opportunity, not only to learn by observing, but you can build up some other skills, like, for example, giving feedback appropriately as well, which in many businesses is an important skill to have as a manager. So being able to give feedback and constructive feedback is useful as well. I'll see if I can actually try and find any with these two after 4 minutes. I don't know. But anyway, we've got a few more minutes. Anything of interest happening recently, Fred?
Oh, lots going on at the moment, but they're all kind of just things bubbling under, sort of secret stuff, like the new book,
Secret
which is
stuff.
coming out soon.
Did you just say a
Yeah.
secret book?
Well, it won't be secret when it's published. I want loads of people to buy it. I'll make a massive song and dance about
A
it.
book of secrets.
The Book of Secrets. Oh, actually, you've just given me an idea for the title.
The big book of sales secrets.
The Big Book of Sales Secrets. Oh, damn it. I I've got to go back to the drawing board.
Quickly,
I've just finished first draft, so we're good on that. So.
Oh, that's all right. Mike, what about you? Any quick things happening with you at the moment?
I have a car in the shop that there'll be a negotiation involved because I think the original mechanics screwed something up. So when I go back to pick up the car and they try to present me with a bill, I'm already framing my arguments to make sure that they correct the errors that they themselves made. At least that's my opening position.
Yeah, you know what? You can prepare for some of these things, but you know what? Sometimes once you're there, you just have to be able to adjust and adapt at the moment as well. Which reminds me, Mike, we're still waiting for this review of your negotiation with your daughter.
With my daughter.
Yes.
Thank you for reminding me. I'm going to write a note here.
Right, I'm going to move you around. Right, let's get started, okay? I don't know how many people are watching, but, oh, by the way, if you are watching and you're watching this live, feel free to add any comments, okay? I think you can actually do this on YouTube. You can do this in LinkedIn. Go on, Mike.
We've got 30 people in the audience right now, looks like. No questions yet.
All right. Well, listen, when you watch the negotiation, feel free to add any comments on there. And at the end of it, anything that you observed as well, okay? It's always good. The good, the bad, and the ugly, okay? So let's do this. I've got the seller's card. All right. So, Fred, if you could just look away from the screen just for a minute. Okay. And for you, Mike, you have a break even.
Thank you.
Okay. And a tactic for you.
Yes.
No, a tactic for you.
Oh.
Sounds ominous.
Fred's like, oh
God, I could keep my head in my hands.
Good start. Right, get your head out of your hands now. Okay, you can look back.
Okay.
Right, Mike's not looking.
Yep.
Okay. Budget for you.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. And a tactic for you.
Oh.
Right, you can
I
look
hope
back.
it's not the same tactic.
Right, Mike, you can look back.
All right.
I do a lot of these exercises, and when people start to know what's going on, they do these subtle sounds and all sorts of things. But anyway, I'm going to leave you guys to it. Right.
Yes.
So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put 4 minutes on the screen. Okay. Use those 4 minutes to negotiate a satisfactory price per ton of apples. I forgot to say we need something to negotiate over. So we always negotiate for the price per ton of apples. Try and incorporate your tactic. And at the end of the practice, first question I've got is, what do you think the other person was doing? And then after that, we'll give you a little bit of breakdown of what we thought was going on. Okay. Right. So, gentlemen, here we go. We have 4 minutes, and your time starts now.
Awesome. Mike, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Fred. Thank you for asking. How are you today?
Yeah, marvelous. Marvelous. Excited about the prospect of us doing business together. I'm really hoping we can do that.
I hope so as well.
Cool. So you can sell me apples, I understand.
I can, yes.
What sort can you sell me?
We sell the finest apples on the planet. They are in high demand. People come back repetitively. They buy them again and again and again.
Oh, makes them so special.
Well, there's the taste, of course, which is important. There's the look, shiny gloss, really something you could put out on your table, serve to your friends. Be very proud of them.
Sounds like what I'm after. So, what's the best price?
The best price for the best apples, $800 a ton.
Why so much?
They're the best apples on the planet.
What about the second best apples on the planet? What's the price for them?
I don't have a price for the second best apples on the planet because all our orchards are all the best. Could you tell me what price you're looking to pay?
Half that.
400?
400. Yeah.
Fred, have you been talking to those farmers that have what we call wormers? Do you know what a wormer apple is?
Oh no, what's that?
Those are the apples that don't make any cut. They're not fit for human consumption. They're put out to the hogs, the pigs, because they'll eat anything. But you don't want $400 a ton apples.
Okay, I'm not going to feed them to pigs, but I don't need top quality. So, what can we do?
$740 would be a deeply discounted price.
How much further can you go on that? And they do not need to be the top quality shiny on the table with the sticker on, all that sort of business. I'm looking for bulk. What can we do?
Well, I was going to say I would have to pick through them to find any blemishes or anything like that. It would be extra time and effort on our part. For a ton, I could do 687.
687. What if I picked through them and picked out the ones which aren't so good? Can we get down to, how about 500?
I could do 673.50.
You know what? There's going to be a lot of people watching this thinking, what the hell was going on there? But I can tell you now, those tactics that both of you had a profound effect on your negotiation styles. And the reason why I can say that, I've seen you negotiate before, so I know what's just happened. Saying that, didn't make an agreement, which is fine. Mike, any thoughts as to perhaps what tactics Fred was looking at?
I felt there were some pauses in there that might be reflective of silence as a technique. That's the only thing I picked up on. Everything else felt very natural.
Okay. All right. Well, we had open questions.
Open questions. Okay.
Okay.
But as I've worked with Fred before, he's very good at asking open-ended questions.
Yes. But like every skill and every tactic out there, there is a right place and a wrong place to ask a question. And there's a right way and a wrong way to ask a question as well. So we'll talk about that in a minute. However, Fred, you had a chance. Any thoughts to perhaps what Mike was doing?
I think he was being reflective and thoughtful.
Reflective and thoughtful. And what do you think was the characteristics of somebody being reflective and thoughtful?
It, again, knowing Mike, which is why it was so clear he was doing something. It was the long pause. It was the so silence.
Okay, silence.
That's where I was thinking. Do we have the same thing here?
No, but
which is interesting when you're asking open questions.
Yeah, and because this is kind of, I mean, people don't appreciate this quite so much, and people say, right, we're going into a negotiation, we're preparing and planning, and this is what we're going to do. But you've got to be able to adapt to the situations. Okay, so if you get stuck in doing what you're going to do, it can often undermine your own negotiation as well. Now, in all honesty, there was a zone of agreement. It wasn't a brilliantly big one here, given what you do know. And again, there were some numbers going on here, and again, I can talk to you about that as well. So let me just give a little bit of thoughts on this. And by the way, if anybody is watching, if you want to add anything in it, please do. Like I said, good, the bad, and the ugly. There is the three of us here. You choose which one we are. So Fred, you had questions, and that's what you were going to be focusing on. And Mike, you had silence, which is what you were going to start with as well. But it was interesting because Fred, you kind of started with a couple of questions, and saying how excited you are to be here. But almost immediately, Mike, there's very little response from you. All right, you're almost using your silence at that moment. It's like, I don't want to really say anything at the moment. So were you purposely being?
I was. They're the voice in my head. I wrote down silence on my sheet of paper.
Yeah.
I wrote down the numbers, and my focus was purely not let's get a deal and let's use all these other techniques. I was just focusing on use silence every chance I got. As awkward as it may feel and sound, I wanted there to be, if there's going to be failure, I want it to be in this environment with you guys.
Yeah, and I got to say, it almost immediately changed the negotiation, almost immediately, because Fred literally said he's excited, hoping to get a deal here, and he got nothing from you. Okay, so, and then you said, yeah, hope so, and then this is where Fred was like, oh, cool, thinking, okay, all right, what's going on here?
These apples? No, these are special apples.
No.
Why would I sell them to you?
So then Fred is like, okay, yeah, well, are you selling apples? Yes. Okay. Yeah. What are you selling? We've got the finest apples, the highest grade apples, best in the world. Everybody keeps coming back. What makes them so special? The taste, the looks. We're proud of them. So okay, that's brilliant. So tell us what your best price is. So, okay, all the way through, and then this is where Mike, you said, well, the best price is £800 per ton. Okay. Now, there's a couple of things I would probably just highlight on the way through here, which is you're asking questions, Fred, which is fine. You're getting good information. The idea of open questions is get information. And one of the things you should add to open question is to try and add a summary at the end of it every so often. Okay, so even with Mike not saying much, it might still be worth actually saying, okay, so that's brilliant, Mike. So let me just get this right. Okay, what you are selling is da 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 da. Okay, so just summarizing. That's a nice way of doing it. Okay, but you're asking questions, asking what the best price is. I'm always a bit wary about labeling their position as the best price because it's almost putting your back against the wall to start with. This is the best price. Okay, so yeah, Mike. So tell me, what are you selling those apples for? Okay,
yeah, good.
Rather than sticking the word best, because as soon as you put best on that, then you're saying, right, well, Mike's
Right.
going to lose out every time you drop that price.
And I have a concession cadence here that I'd orchestrated ahead of time to make. So as soon as you said best price, I went, uh-oh. So he's going to ask for something better, and I'm going to throw out my number, but I'm going to follow my plan. This is going to get awkward when it's no longer my best price. So I immediately started thinking of what are some excuses, what are some rationale reasons why I can move off the best price for a better price. The whole I got to pick through the I got to go do work.
I was thinking about the what, not the best. I wanted to get the question in, and then the best price was just like the next thing that came into my mind. Didn't think about that piece.
And that's the point. That's what I try to raise to everybody is like when you get focused on doing something, sometimes you miss what you should be doing, and you think you've achieved it. That one word, best, has put you in a difficult position, Fred, from really what you're going to get. And actually, Mike's now thinking, okay, what do I do? All right, because it's actually scuppered his position as well. Okay, so it really has to be careful about the type of questions you're asking, and even single words will have an impact. Now, when you said the 800, obviously the 800 is above the 580. Okay, so in terms of your zone, you had a zone, you put yours way outside, so it's outside right now. 800 is well outside. Now, obviously, I'm watching you, Fred. Mike's watching you. Your eyes went up. Your fingers went straight up here as well. And then you said, why is it so much? Okay.
Open-ended question.
Yeah. However, it wasn't a no, I can't do that, or no rejection. Okay. In fact, even the finger up here doesn't suggest that you're looking like you're under stress.
Yeah.
Now, people may have a different view on this, but if you get a proposal and the first thing you do is ask a clarification question, what you're not doing is the first thing that comes to mind is not to say, I can't do it. All right. Now, particularly in this case, you can't do it. So for me, Fred, the first thing I would be saying is, Mike, I'm sorry to say there's just no way I can achieve an 800. God, why are they so expensive? You might ask that question then, but I'd be very careful about doing it beforehand, and certainly if you haven't rejected it first.
It's funny. I stopped myself doing a flinch, which is what. So naturally, I was going to go, what? But I'm thinking, no, I'm practicing this because I stopped myself with that and then just went for the question.
Yeah, and I had stopped myself in the first one we did from using a flinch. I didn't stop I just didn't do it because I was so focused on my tactic then as well.
Yeah. I mean, and this is it. You see, you're getting so focused on the tactic, it has an impact on the rest of the negotiations. And why this is important in practice more than anything else is you need to practice it, so it becomes natural and you don't have to think about it. Because when you don't have to think about it, it will naturally occur at the right places. So if you get really good at asking open questions and force yourself to do it now, but practicing and suddenly realize, this is a wrong place to ask it, you'll know in the future. All right. But for me, open questions, avoid an open question immediately after you got a proposal.
Can I ask for a critique on my, I'll call it a flinch. I wrote down ahead of time wormers.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what price you said, I was going to come back with, oh, those are wormers. You don't want those. It was a form of a flinch. It wasn't, oh my God, there's no, I can't sell them for that. I was going to degrade your offer.
Well, there's a couple of things there as well. So, I mean, I'll skip down then, okay? Because again, Fred, you asked an open question. Why is it so much? Very dangerous question in a negotiation. All right. There are some elements you can ask, but linking it to the price is difficult. Yeah. So, and I've done this before in real negotiations. I haven't asked what the price is. I said, tell me about your manufacturing process. How do you do this? What kind of throughput do you get? What capacity do you run at? So I try to get all the bits of information I want that I can then deduce as to say, well, okay, is this going to be what kind of pricing ranges should I be looking at? So you can be careful with that type of question, but it's still an open question. All right. Nothing wrong with that in that sense. Now, this is where ultimately, Fred, you said, I'm looking at half of that. Then we had the silence from Mike. And then Mike, you then said, so you're looking at 400. 400, yes. Now, the curious thing here, Mike, is actually 400 is acceptable to you. All right. So this time it's acceptable to you. And same thing here. It's what you went, Fred, and then you paused and you asked a question. Have you ever heard of wormer apples? All right. So same thing with Fred. You haven't said no. The first thing that comes to mind is not to reject. The first thing that's come to mind is, how do I build in a rejection? How do I explain to him that this is no good? Listen, Fred, 400, that's just not going to work. That can't work for us. I mean, have you ever heard of wormer apples? So you can introduce it afterwards. But again, if you are going to reject, my suggestion would be to reject, see how the rejection lies, and then add a question.
So build in the 400 is not going to work. Silence. Reflect. Are these wormer apples, Fred? Is that what you're, so use two or three techniques combined. Is what I heard you say.
Yeah, it's nearly always a combination of techniques. You're trying things
Flinch,
out here.
Silence, and then denigrate.
Yeah, I'd also be careful about I'd always be careful about the flinch. Okay, and the problem with the flinch is it often looks wrong. All right, so I wouldn't necessarily suggest people practice the flinch, but what I would suggest people do is to be observing the body language, because it's really the unconscious body language which is the most important thing that you're looking for. And it's a combination of things, because Mike, you could have gone, have you heard of wormer apples? It's still a clarification question. It's still not a no. So you've only done half the messaging through the non-verbal. So, you know, so again, you know, Fred said 400. In fact, you put 400 on the table, which is even worse in a way. Okay, you put 400 in, and Fred's got, yeah, 400. All right, and he said, Fred, have you heard of worm apples? I'd be more along the lines of, you know, Fred, you know, 400 is just not going to work for us at all. Use your silence then, because Fred might come back at that moment. All right, so that's a purpose to make a silence, and then you can maybe ask a question. Have you heard of worming apples? No, I haven't. Because what you've got is you've got a problem now. Is that 400?
By the way, I made that up. Is there such a thing as wormer apples? I don't know.
I don't know, but it was an interesting topic to discuss because, you know, Fred was like, oh, what's that? The problem is he's now having a conversation, but the last number on the table is 400. The longer the 400 stays on there, the longer it's going to anchor the position as well. So you've got to get it off the table quickly if you don't want it to play a part in the negotiation. All right, so get it off the table, then go down your conversation. But if you leave it on the table, you know, it's that what Fred said. Well, you know what? I'm not after the best apples. You're talking about wormer apples. That's probably what I do want. Okay. And then there was some more movements.
I've got loads of things. But I wanted to carry on the practice. I mean, that would have just been easy. Oh, we can buy them for that then. Bad, done. But the point was to practice what we were doing.
Yeah.
And I think I'm not going to go much further because I know that, you know, everybody will follow on with this. And we're trying to demonstrate some aspects here. Okay. But that was probably within the first 2 minutes. So within the first 2 minutes, we've already seen how purposely practicing a tactic can actually change, you know, the warmth and the demeanor of a negotiation. Silence, when people do it on purpose, it's almost like naturally, right, I've got to go quiet on everything. Silence is about going quiet on everything. Silence is about knowing where to use the silence. All right. So have a normal conversation, but at strategic points, silence.
Well, so I want to ask Fred a question about, because Phil, you and I are both lifelong buyers. So I want to get between the ears of a seller, because there's that old saying, you know, sellers like to talk, and, you know, how do you know when a seller's lying? Their mouth is moving. There's jokes like that. You know, by the way, there's another saying, buyers are liars. So both sides have some credibility issues. But as a salesperson, I started to think, okay, how am I going to sell these apples when I was told my role is seller?
Yeah.
And then when Phil flipped silence, I was like, oh, that's out the window. How do you sell using silence effectively? Do you have any real world techniques for the professional sellers of the world?
Yeah, I'd have gone open questions plus silence. So ask a powerful question and then shut up. So Fred, oh no, I'm excited to meet you too. What are you using these apples for?
Right.
And that would have been the crack. Oh, I'm going to make pies. I'm going to do something. Oh, tell me more about that. The more I talk about it, the more excited I get. The more you're understanding. Okay, yeah, he needs good quality ones here.
And maybe had a prop, like took some notes, like
Oh yeah. Oh, that's an exciting project. Yeah. You get involved, you're getting into my head and my vision and everything else, and I am excited about this stuff because Mark Beresford did put an interesting comment in the chat. I don't know if you saw that. This has been interesting and fun to watch. Would a buyer put up with the silence unless they were desperate for the product? Yeah, I was dead keen on this thing, you know. And it's like, well, this guy wants to keep his apples.
I like, would they put up? Would they tolerate a pesky salesperson if they weren't really interested in buying apples?
Anyway, yeah. But it was the silence element that is like, you're not telling me anything. You're not even asking me anything to try and find out about me, but you're not really telling me anything about the apples either.
No, I went exclusivity. Like, oh, my apples are.
Well,
I don't need you as a buyer. I have plenty of buyers.
I'll go someone else who does want to sell them.
All right. So
what you didn't walk away. That was a key for me. Is that as I kind of feigned that I've got these exclusive apples, you didn't say, oh, well, I'm not interested in those, and walk down the road.
Yeah, but I would also say that that's where you miss the opportunity to ask questions back.
Absolutely.
Fred was asking the questions. He was finding out about you, but you didn't find out about him. So, you know, you have no idea what grade of apples he wants, but you're fully onto these are going to be the top grade. But then you do talk about the lower grade later on. Okay. So the art of using silence, there are some genuine places where silence is a must. All right. And Fred's already said it. When you ask a question, you go silent. All right. And actually, Fred, if you go back and have a recording of this, there's some questions you asked, but then you added a bit more to it. You embellished it a little bit. Okay. So when you
Well,
ask a
recall, I
question,
thought Fred might have been using silence because he asked the question and then he let it go.
yeah, which is fine. And in a way, once you've asked that question, you go silent. It's in the other part. Now you can stay silent for quite a while because the other party might be thinking about it. All right. Or the other party might stay silent because they want you to explain some more. And of course, if you get a silence in a negotiation, or you get a silence in any kind of conversation, one way of breaking that silence, ask a really honest, nice, easy question of the other party. Did you hear that, Fred? Simple, closed, yes, no answer. Because then if they don't respond to you, all right, it ends in bordering on the fact that it becomes a ploy, it becomes a tactic as such. It becomes childish. So, there are ways of breaking that silence. But when you ask a question, that's a silence. When you get an answer to a long question, I wouldn't necessarily say silence, but certainly pause longer before you then respond to the question, the answer to that question. Where I would always suggest you don't use silence is when you've had a proposal. So, Mike, when you say to Fred, oh, listen, we're selling our apples there, £800 a ton. If you're not going to accept it, or even if you are going to accept it, I would not pause at that moment, because if you're pausing, it means you're thinking about it. And if you're thinking about it, the first thing that doesn't come to mind is to say no. It is so much easier to say no when you cannot accept something than it is to say when you can accept something. And people find it extraordinarily difficult. So if somebody is thinking, pondering, or silent after they've had a proposal, it really is not necessarily the best place. It's better to say, like, I can't do that, and then go silent. All right, it gives you time to think about it, but you've made that rejection straight away. In terms of questions, the same thing with the questions. Open questions, fantastic in the early parts of the meeting. Both parties need to be always asking them, because you're trying to build up the information. Okay, now closed questions you have at the end of negotiations, or when you close out pieces of information. But one place I would always recommend not to ask an open question is what we've seen here. Get a proposal. Don't let an open question be the response to a proposal. Yeah, the price is 800. Does that include delivery? Don't ask a question once you had a proposal, particularly again if you're going to reject it. So open questions and silence we definitely had. Mike, anything to add on that?
No, it's always it's a pleasure to learn and to try new things and to pick up on techniques and get constructive feedback. So I thank you for that. And what I also appreciate is, at least I didn't pick up on it. If you did it very well. You didn't give me the sandwich technique. Well, here's the stuff you did well, and here's the stuff you need to work on, and here's the stuff you did well. It's such a formulaic thing that I'm sure worked the first time, the first 100 times, the first 10 years before it got out. And I think now people know about the sandwich technique for critique. And as soon as the boss says, hey, by the way, I want to talk to you about something, I really like the way you sent that email, but they go, oh, here it comes. Right. So thank you for being authentic in, at least I felt you were authentic in your feedback. I appreciate that.
No, and I appreciate it. And again, when it comes to feedback, everybody has their own styles. I mean, I'm just taking notes. I'm taking notes in the way that I
Right.
teach people how to take notes.
But Phil,
So I'm
there's
going
what
through
I
it.
felt I was doing, and there's the way you perceived it and the way Fred perceived it. It's like I said, I had it planned out to go for the wormers. So, and I was going to use silence in the wormers. And that's where the 400, I should have been stronger in my no to the 400. I thought I thought I was physically showing it strong enough. And what I heard was I wasn't. Or I could elaborate on the physical no with a hard no, still use silence, and then still come back with the warmer. So, it's an improvement that I can make.
The key thing with all of this is actually having a third party observe. Whether you're procurement or whether you're sales, a project manager or a CEO, you often negotiate on your own behind closed doors with no other person to give you any feedback, and nobody watching both parties, and certainly nobody watching with both parties knowledge of what they've got on their sides either.
Oh, I just heard something that actually blew my mind. It was on a live podcast just before this one. And they said the CEO had a reputation for being all business all the time, and they thought they should be warmer and more relationship based, and so they weren't allowed in the room. This consultant was not allowed in the room with the CEO because that was confidential, but they were allowed to see video of deals that had closed because they were no longer as confidential. And I thought, who is filming themselves? Like, there's lots of videos of yourself negotiating. Maybe this is just a really advanced person or company that's filming negotiations, but that was just odd to me that this consultant would be allowed to see videos so that they could review and give feedback on when they previously weren't engaged at all. So maybe there are some people out there.
Are they doing it virtually and everything is video?
No, this is pre. This is actually stories from pre-Zoom.
Okay. Oh.
I thought that was odd. But maybe there are people videoing themselves. I don't know.
Well, video negotiations has been around for 40 odd years. I mean, I think you know the story. I used to do this for my dad, 10 years of age, videoing his own courses where people were
in
negotiating.
practice, yes. They were talking about 100 like big deals because they saved $20 million on the deal. So these were $100 million deals that were apparently being filmed. That's counter to my experience.
Fred, anything to add, sir?
I just want to tell you a little story, actually, because just Mike with not wanting to give me his apples, which is what it felt like once, and you with your clocks behind you there. I actually did buy a clock, but it was really weird that I went and I bought the clock and we negotiated the deal, but the deal was that the guy in the shop get to keep the clock for a week. I'm not sure how he did that. He liked the clock so much and he wanted to show the customers it, even though I bought it. The part of the deal for me to get the discount was that he kept it for an extra week. So I went to buy a clock, bought it, but walked out the shop without it.
But did he have a show?
I wish that was videoed.
Was there some type of event?
I'm just gonna add one last story here, okay? Because you talked about the shops, all right? So maybe a couple of you heard this, but when I was about 10 or 11, my dad was teaching procurement people, all right? And it was not just negotiating; it was a legal aspect, stock control, all this sort of stuff. Anyway, obviously, quality control, fitness for purpose was the big term, legal terms. It had to be fit for purpose and that. Anyway, he bought a pair of shoes from a store in York, and the heel had come off. So he said to me, son, I'm going to get these shoes changed. I'm going to get my money back. So he took me into this shop, and he goes into the shop and he says to the lady, I bought these shoes, and as you can see, I've only worn them once. The heels come off, and I want my money back. I'm kind of remembering a lot of this. Okay, so anyway, she was like, "Well, we don't give the money back. It's purchasing. Well, they're not fit for purpose. My statutory rights. Da 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 da." Anyway, this felt like it went on for like 10 or 15 minutes, and it got quite heated. Anyway, eventually the woman said, "Right. Okay, right, where's your receipt?" All right. So he hands the receipt over, only to find he's gone into the wrong shop.
Brilliant.
And it was in fact the shop next door. There was two shoe shops. Anyway, the woman started to shout and said, "Right, that's it, I'm getting the police." He said, "Come on, Phil." He said, "Quick, let's go." So he ended up dying out. He said, "Let this be a lesson for you. Always make sure you got your facts straight before you start."
Good lawyer right there.
Yep, brilliant. Love it.
Anyway, listen, I'm gonna wrap it up. I don't know whether anybody's got any comments or any questions. Mawili said, "Now I understand why silence is a powerful tool in negotiations. The game is so practical and brings negotiation to life." Yeah, Mawili, you're absolutely right. It is a game, okay, but it's a simplified one that allows us as participants to focus on moments in a negotiation, and when you focus on the moments, you can then improve upon those moments, okay? And that is so powerful, and this is what this is what the three of us are doing here. We might make fools of ourselves a little bit, but the whole point is you practice the little things.
Don't challenge me.
All right, any other questions, anybody? Oh, Bassint's put a smile on there. We did have it's been interesting fun. Silence. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. Right, in that case, I think we're going to wrap it up. We've had 40 minutes of fun. So for all of you that are watching, these are our little pop-up practices. We'll be mixing it up a little bit. We've got lots of different cards and lots of different tactics. And of course, if you want to send a tactic in and get one of us to practice it on purpose, even better. And if you want to have a go yourself, just to let you know, every month, the Negotiation Club runs a free taster session. And in fact, this month, April, it's on Thursday. So in 2 days' time, if you want to have a go, a little bit of negotiation practice, get to have a chance with a bit of feedback. I can give you some feedback as well. Go to our website and check out the free taster. All right, join up there. Both Mike and Fred have done it. I have turned them. As you can see, the buyer is now the seller and the seller is now the buyer. Mike, final words. Say goodbye.
Hey.
Fred, say goodbye.
Bill, Fred, thank you
Right.
very much. I'll be in the
Yeah.
UK soon enough, over the summer anyway. I've already got a trip scheduled, so we'll get to see each other live in person.
Oh, in the room.
Ooh,
Oh,
physical
the room.
cards.
Yes.
Physical cards. All right, we'll have to record that. Right. So goodbye, all audience. See you again. Take care. Bye bye. Bye bye.